All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to go ahead and create a storyboard. When we talk about a storyboard, it's essentially a comic book version of our animation. And when it comes to storyboarding, there's the larger picture storyboard, which is done by a storyboard artist and it's done for the director. That's going to kind of plot out the entire movie, and it's going to allow animators, actors, and everyone on the team to come together and communicate. But there's also many storyboards within an animation that are essentially storyboards of a storyboard segment, if that makes sense, that animators generally have to do themselves. So in short, it's a means of planning out how our animation is going to go without having to come up with it on the fly, right? While we're animating, we're going to have a bit of a visual reference. Now, these can be used a number of ways. A major way they're used is by animators for planning, but they're also used for communicating ideas with other teams of the animation team, be it whoever's in charge or the director themselves. And what that allows animators to do is communicate quickly and iteratively without wasting a lot of time animating. Because as you will start to see, animating does take quite a bit of time, and it's not that easy to go back and undo and make adjustments to, or at least it's not as quick as doing to a drawing per se, especially when they're a quick, sloppy drawing. So the first thing I'm going to do is just open up our scene. Let's come here to open and go into our set here. So we'll go into our sets folder and shot setup and shot setup 03. Just open this and we're not going to save. And in this one, we set up our camera and we set up our robot. So we have kind of a base idea of how things are going to go. Now, depending on what you want to do here, you could change this up. Something that could be useful is using your snipping tool to get an initial go of things. So you can come to your start menu here and search snipping. This may change on Windows 11 and newer versions just for those of you in the future. But if we type in the snipping tool, this is something that I really enjoy using. We can just click new. You can highlight and snip this out and right-click and copy. I have one of my pen clicks in there. I'm not worried about that. But we can come into Photoshop here and hit Control-V to paste, and then Control-T to scale it down and just move it into a corner. You do not have to use Photoshop. You guys can use paper and pencil or pen if you like. There's nothing wrong with traditional mediums. I'm doing it digital strictly because I'm teaching you guys this and I don't want to get a second camera set up. But a lot of the times when I do quick storyboards, I prefer to do it on paper. It's just a little bit faster. Now, an advantage of doing this digitally is I can just come in here and zoom in and edit it in here. So let's go ahead and get that started. I'm just hitting Control plus to zoom in here. And I'm going to hit the plus icon here to create a new layer. With my brush, I'm just going to hold Shift here and I'm just going to make a frame. So just holding Shift, making a frame here, and that will be kind of our base animation frame that we use. This is going to stay put most of the time, so I could potentially draw the elements where I want here. But just to get started, let's go ahead and just name this frame. And I could Alt duplicate this and then Control T and just drag this over to make another frame. You can also find templates online for storyboards if you prefer that. Due to copyright issues, I'm not going to do that, and I don't normally do that. I personally feel it's a bit too much. It's not necessary. You can just come in here and quickly create your own sort of setup. I'll merge these down. That way they are all merged, and then I'll just create a new layer here and do our drawing on top. So what I'll do is I'll first just kind of sketch in this first frame where we have our gem here, and I'm going to switch to my secondary color of magenta. You don't have to use the same colors as me. I'm mainly using these colors because they are the vert mode colors, if you are all wondering. I would normally use black and white. Okay, and I'm just going to etch in the background here just to have an idea of where this is going to go. Maybe come back on top with this. And I'm not going to do it super detailed here. We just get our little character here. And this is going to be where one of our first discrepancy comes in. How does our character look? So here, we're just going to have the character set up and moving forward. So this is going to be our establishing shot. And we might even want to start with the character off screen. So what I might want to do is start with the character back here off of frame. So that way they come onto frame and we can get that establishing shot. Now, when you're creating a storyboard, it's good to create communication tools. You'll notice that I drew it literally off screen, and you can do visual storytelling this way, where you move the character off screen so they know. And then we could draw an arrow to indicate the character is going to be coming on screen for this action. So something like that. I'll fill it in. And we'll have that move forward, and we can add some notes down here. So we could go ahead and add a note of establishing shot, and we can think about the amount of time we might want this to have, maybe something like 24 to, or maybe 12 to 24 frames. And remember, with establishing shot, the more the better. So maybe what we'll do is we'll do 12 frames total, and then try and have the character come on frame by frame 24. And that could be our goal, all right? So that could be what we're looking to get at here. And now in the next frame, I'll just kind of sketch this to be approximate again. And I'm looking at that first frame for reference. If it's not perfect, that's okay. If you want it to be perfect, you can take the time to kind of trace it. And I'm going to add some more communication here where we just have our little character, and then we have the character coming closer. Now, I don't have exact scales here, okay? I'm just going to have to do my best to guess how this is going to look on screen. And we might have to make some adjustments as we go because we don't actually know. But this can help in our storyboard stage to kind of think about where we might have issue. We can think about how we want this to move, maybe robotically. And we're just going to have this character move forward in the shot. And I don't know how long this is going to take. This is kind of a tricky thing where we want to get the character to move forward, but we don't want to bore the audience. So we're going to have the robot move forward. And thinking about the time, let's look at that distance. If we take a look at the distance here to here, maybe we want it to be somewhere in the ballpark of 2 seconds. So that'd be 48 frames. And we could always change these later, but it's just kind of a good idea to think about, okay, how long does that look? 2 seconds, 3 seconds. And think about it, think of Mississippi's, this would be 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, right? That's pretty quick. I may even want to drag that out to be longer. We might even want to do maybe 4 seconds, which would be something like 96 frames. So we could maybe add a note there, 1 or the 2. And we'll have to feel that out in the blocking stage. This gives us kind of a alert, I guess you could say, okay, we're going to test this out here, see how it looks. Now, in the next shot, let's get this set up here. I'll just get my little diamond in place. We'll sketch out the backdrop and get our robot to be approximately in the same spot as last time. And this is going to be one of the more benign frames, but we want to add this in just to remember that we need to do this. And that's going to be have the character stop and stare and basically rotate down and look at this thing. So I'll just kind of create a rotation arrow, fill that in. We're going to have the discovery phase or discovery where we're going to stop, rotate, and stare. And the goal of this is to show thought processing. So the robot's going to come to this object, they're going to stop, they're going to rotate down to look at it, and then they're going to process a bit. So we're going to have the stop from the previous frame, and we could draw an arrow over there to just kind of indicate that. We're going to rotate, and we could have the rotate be kind of slow if we want it to be. 8 frames would be the shortest noticeable. So I might do 8 frames. That's actually pretty quick, though. If I really wanted it to be slow, I'd do 12. But I want this to be a little bit snappy, make it look like this robot's not a slow robot. It's actually taking its time, which is going to be 8 frames. And then we're going to do the stare. And for the stare, I think I'm going to think about somewhere between 12 to 24. So I'll just put that at 12 frames. And then the next thing we're going to do is anticipate and pick up. So we're finally getting to our goal here, where our robot's going to anticipate backwards and pick up. Now, this is what can be kind of useful, is we want to think about which arm we want to pick up with. And when it comes to staging and solid drawing some of our 12 principles of animation, we're going to want it to be this arm here. So just be mindful of that, but we're going to anticipate backwards. And we could leave this as its own frame if we want. We could just add anticipate. We could set our frame. I'm just going to put this at 8. And then we could do our grab next. And this is one of those really nice things about doing our storyboard, is we can really think about which arm needs to be our grabbing arm, just small details like that that we wouldn't think of as that important, but are quite significant at the end of the day. So I'm going to get this arm to be my grab arm. Once again, don't worry about the pose. It may not necessarily be the same. All we care about here is kind of figuring what the motion is and why we're doing it. And that will be the grab and lift. And we have to think about it. The grab is going to be 8. Maybe the lift is about 8 or 12. So we might just give ourselves maybe 20 frames here, or so 12 plus 8, that's 20. So I think that'll be good. And then we're running out of space here, so I'll have to make a couple more of these frames, which is no problem. But what we're going to do is we're going to have the character look at it next. So maybe we have them move backwards a bit and look at it. Not quite sure yet how we're going to do this. We can think a bit of the pose. If we want to kind of analyze it, it might be neat to hold it up around this area so we can tell the character's looking at it. And then this is where drawing can get a little bit challenging, thinking about the rotations of the arms that are going to be needed. I'm going to guess that we're going to kind of rotate it out like that. Then we can have the character observe it. Maybe they rotate their head a few times. We really want to sell this. Now, this is where filming ourselves for some reference might come in. You know, how long would we observe something, kind of looking it over? So I could just kind of grab an object and, you know, kind of think about how many times I might want to look at it. And just as a safety frame, we'll add, you know, observes or maybe examines objects, and just add something like 24 here. So that way we have an idea. And from here, we can duplicate our frames again. Control T to transform, and just move these down. And then I'm going to shift select the bottom layer to the top, Control T, and just move these in. And you can see why you might want to do this not digitally. I think we only need one more row. So there we go. You don't have to worry about this sort of headache on paper. You just get another sheet of paper, or you draw another box if you have room. From here, what we're going to do is we're just going to have the character decide they don't really care about it. So we'll have them rotate forward here. And we're going to have them just kind of chuck it over their shoulder is the idea. So I don't know exactly how that's going to look, but we'll kind of do this sort of shrug motion, chuck over the shoulder. And one of the things we want to think about is that secondary animation. Where's this thing going to land? And since we have the rule of thirds, what might be kind of fun to do is have it land back here. But we're going to have this chuck over shoulder. And this is going to be pretty quick. You know, if you think about a throw, this might be something like 12 frames of the chuck in terms of the motion. And then from there, we're going to have the gem continue to fall. We'll have to think about this in terms of secondary animation, because what we're going to have next is the robot's just going to come back into position here. And you'll see my drawings are getting a little bit sloppier just because I'm getting to the end point here. But we'll have the robot kind of neutral position. And I don't know how long it's going to take to get that. So you're going to chuck it, and you're just going to come back to a neutral position. I might give it 12 frames here. We might just need 8. And then what we'll do is think about the gem back here is still falling, right? So the gem's still going to be falling. It's going to be a pretty big chuck. And then what's going to happen next is the robot's going to kind of just lift off screen and go forward and continue off screen here. So that'll be the idea. And what we're left with is the gem and our closing shot. So we'll just put robot leaves, hold on gem, and maybe give it 24 frames for the exit shot, or however long it takes for the punchline to sink in. And there you have it. We have a bit of a storyboard. So now we have an idea of how this is going to go. We're going to start with our robot off screen, get that establishing shot for a few seconds there, have the robot just move forward. Then the robot's going to look down, stare at the rock. They're going to bring their arm up in anticipation, grab the rock, look at it, examine it, chuck it over their shoulder, go back to a neutral pose, and just continue forward on their journey. So the idea is this is an amazing gem. You know, this would be worth tons of money, but this robot was programmed to do something else. Is programmed to find life, or is it programmed to find water, or, you know, something very specific. So it doesn't care about this amazing treasure it found. It's just going to move forward. And that's the little gag we're going for. This, as you can see, gives us a really good idea of what we need to do for our entire animation. It lets us think about some of the things we're going to encounter along the way, like what side the arm needs to be on that grabs, where it needs to look, how we want to have the final framing, all that type of stuff. And it allows us to kind of plot out a rough estimate of time, not necessarily an accurate one, but a rough one. So, what I want you to do as a challenge before you start animating your shot is go ahead and produce a storyboard. Think about how you want to have this set up, and don't just copy my version, try and create your own version of the animation. If you want to follow mine, that is totally fine. I will provide it for you to use. But try and think about how you might do things differently. Maybe you have your own sort of flair. Maybe you can think of a better idea that would be more fun. All right, mine's pretty straightforward. Really nothing too exciting. So go ahead and give that a shot. Try creating your own storyboard. And then what we'll do is we'll start in the animation process next.